I'll bring that down a bit. Yeah. Okay, let's see how we're doing. What do we got? Well, Restream, what you got happening? Alright, looking good. And Eck, how you doing? Are we there? Yes, we are live on X. And Twitch. Let's see. What do we got? Yes, we are. YouTube. How we doing? Yes. Solid. And pick. Alright. Looks like we are singing along. 5:58. How's everyone doing? Let's just let me hang on a second here. Hey, let's see our upcoming schedule. Here it is. So tonight we're doing a recap, and what we're gonna do for the recap, I thought, hey, why not just go through all the videos and we'll talk about each one. You might do, after we do that, you might do a little bit of a Friday night party. And I found a very interesting episode of impact theory that's very relevant, current, and very interesting perspective. And I watched a bit of it, and it really gave me a different perspective on the news of the day. So, we'll see. Alright, so let's go back here. And we'll get this on the road. Hello. Hello. How you doing? Let's bring down the tunage. Figure out where it is. There we go. Okay. So tonight we're going to be discussing a bunch of videos. Now do I have the list? Not really. I should have made a graphic. Ooh, maybe I should do that for next week. Okay, so let me see. Starting from last Saturday, which was our Science Truth, we had a discoveries in psychology that will change your opinion. Then Sunday, for religious truth, we had Will AI Replace God? Then Monday, we had Men's Truth, guys, Find Your Ugly Duckling. And we also had a couple others that day. One of them was 4 steps to stop being bullied by your wife, as well as how women train men to be angry. So I'll have that one. And then after that, we had on Tuesday, we had Life is a Video Game. Here's How to Win by Hughes. Then Wednesday, does intimacy matter for Woman's Truth? And then Thursday, relationship truth was when you understand this, your life will start to make sense. And it's more of about how all relationships, like care relationships for a child, are very important. So yes, it's about relationships. And then, that was it. Okay, so that brings us up to yesterday, which, we're recapping. Then we'll have a little bit of some rock and roll, then maybe some current events, then maybe rock and roll. Get a full evening. I might have to get food. So, yeah, let's see. We'll start, with our discoveries in psychology. So, here we go. Whoop. Let's take a look. And I'll just go here. Discoveries in psychology that will change your opinion of human behavior. It's by Sideprojects. Like their stuff. I will just grab this and throw it in chat so you can support them. I won't be showing the ads because I don't have that kind of sort of setup. So, yeah. If you want to support them, go right ahead. They're very, I stand totally on the some of the greatest thinkers that exist. So here we go.
Way they do. Why do some decisions seem automatic? Or why do we sometimes say one thing but do the complete opposite? Most of us think, almost certainly incorrectly, that we've got human behavior figured out, but psychology has uncovered truths about our minds that are so counterintuitive that make you question almost everything you thought you knew about yourself and others. So let's look into some of them, shall we? How much of what you do, say, or think daily do you believe is intentional? Most people would say almost all of it. We like to imagine ourselves as rational beings who consciously decide what to eat, how to act, and even what to feel. But actually, that's not always the case. Much of what we do is controlled by forces that we're barely aware of or not at all aware of. Take implicit bias, for example. This is the idea that we unconsciously associate certain traits with people based on race, gender, or background. And it doesn't matter how open-minded you believe you are, those biases are still there. They're very deep in your subconscious. A study titled "Does Jamal Receive a Harsher Sentence Than James? First Name Bias in the Criminal Sentencing of Black Men" examined the impact of racially stereotypical names on sentencing outcomes. Researchers analyzed sentencing data of black male inmates in Florida, correlating the distinctiveness of their first names with the severity of their sentences. They found that black men with more stereotypically black names received longer sentences compared to those with less distinctive names, even when controlling for factors factors like the nature of the crime and prior criminal history. And these were judges that are supposedly trained to avoid bias. In a follow-up experiment, participants assigned sentences to hypothetical defendants with either stereotypically black or white names. The results indicated that defendants with stereotypically black names were given harsher sentences, highlighting the influence of implicit biases in judicial decisions. But it's not just about prejudice. The unconscious mind also tricks us in more subtle ways. Priming is a phenomenon where subtle environmental cues can influence your behavior without you even realizing it. In one famous study, researchers left a jar of money in the corner of a room and found that people became less generous and more self-focused just because the idea of money was in their peripheral vision. They weren't even aware that that simple visual cue triggered self-interest related behaviors. Another example was a supermarket experiment where researchers alternated between playing French and German music in the wine section. On days when French music played, sales of French wine spiked. When German music played, German wine flew off the shelves. When asked, most customers said the music didn't influence their choices, but their actions told a very different story. These discoveries show us that the unconscious mind is constantly at work, steering our decisions in ways we can't even detect. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. If so much of our behavior is shaped by factors we don't control, how much of it is truly ours? Are we really as independent as we like to think? William Blake's iconic poem Invictus ends with the famous and rousing lines, "I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul." Inspirational words, but how true are they? What if some of your decisions are made before you're even aware that you've made them? And this brings us to one of psychology's most famous and thought-provoking experiments. In the 1980s, a neuroscientist named Benjamin Libet tested when the brain makes decisions versus when we think we make them. He hooked people up to a machine that measures brain activity and asked them to press a button whenever they felt like it. Meanwhile, they had to note the exact moment that they pressed the button. Libet found that the brain's decision-making activity started about 300 milliseconds before the participants were even aware of their intention to press the button. In other words, their brains chose first and their conscious mind caught up afterwards. And this raises a really big question. If our brains decide before we do we really even have free will? Or is it more like we're passengers in a car thinking we're driving when we're really just along for the ride? Before we spiral into an existential crisis, let's clarify. Libet himself didn't think this experiment proved free will doesn't exist. He argued that while the brain might initiate actions unconsciously, we still have the ability to veto them at the last moment, a kind of free won't instead of free will, if you will. However, other studies have added even more complexity to this debate. Researchers used brain scans to predict decisions participants made up to 7 seconds before they made them. Your brain knows whether you'll pick chocolate or vanilla before you even realize you're craving ice cream. This doesn't just challenge our sense of autonomy, it has enormous implications for how we think about morality and responsibility. If unconscious processes partly drive our actions, how much blame or credit do we really deserve for them? Philosophers and neuroscientists, they're still wrestling with this question, forcing us to look at human behavior in a completely new way. As it turns out, free will might be less free than we've always believed. Think about the last time you blamed someone's actions on their personality. Maybe you said, "Oh, that's just the way he is," or "she's always been like that." It's an easy explanation, but psychology tells us there is way more at play. Our environment often has more influence on our behavior than our personality ever could. Take the infamous Stanford prison experiment. In 1971, psychologist Philip Zimbardo set up a mock prison in the basement of Stanford University. He randomly assigned participants to either be guards or prisoners. Within days, the guards started humiliating the prisoners using psychological abuse and even physical intimidation, while the prisoners began to rebel, break down, or fully submit to the guards' authority. These were regular people, students, just like you'd see on any college campus. So what happened? Well, the environment itself transformed them. The roles, the uniforms, and the sense of power or powerlessness created a situation where people acted in a way that shocked even themselves. And this isn't just a one-off experiment. Similar patterns emerge in studies of obedience. The Milgram experiment, conducted in 1961 by psychologist Stanley Milgram, aimed to explore human obedience to authority, particularly...
Hey, this I gotta talk about. So, this experiment, let's back up. I had a very unorthodox sociology professor in uni. And now, keep in mind, I would think I was in my 40s. Never really had been exposed to the concepts of sociology. And this prof, instead of I don't know, being a prof, he was he taught in a way that would take you from idea to idea and connecting some different ideas. So he had about 20 books, all of them actually very cheap, from some very, old authors, but not like the condensed works that you'd get in a textbook, but rather the actual ideas from the authors. So it was a very interesting course, and we covered this experiment. And what's not talked about in this video is the setup for the experiment. And that was that, the people who had been selected for this study, right, were given an address and a time to show up. And that's all they knew, right? So they knew it was, I believe the cover story for the experiment was to assist with new memorization techniques. So that was, I think, the guys. And then when the person showed up at the time and place, there was another guy that would walk in and sit down and, be waiting. And then the experimenter or a person in a lab coat would come out and say, so we're conducting this experiment so that we can learn effective ways of having people's memory or remember things through negative reinforcement. So the idea was this is an experiment to provide negative reinforcement to learners. So there was two roles, teacher and learner. Teacher would give increasing electric shocks to the learner. And then what they did was they gave, they showed them, the two straws, so short straw, long straw, and then they said, here, pick. And one of them guys standing there would pick out the straw, and the other guy would get the other straw. So then the learner would be, the one guy that was unknown to the person being experimented on. The other guy was an actor. He always got the learner. And this guy always got the teacher, the real person being experimented on. So they would go into the room and they would show both of them this electrical panel, right? And so they're showing like how, so the learner, let's go back. The learner would go through or the teacher would say, repeat these letters, A, F, G, X, Y, Z. And then the learner would respond with almost correct, right? So the instructions were very simple. Administer going from like right to left, administer increasing shocks for incorrect answer. And they were supposed to say incorrect and give them a zap. Okay. So as the experiment continued, what happened was, the strings of characters got longer. So there would be like X, Y. The teacher would go X, Y, X, Y, Z, W, and then the learner would get it wrong and get a zap, right? And as each stage goes on, the guy who's now on, it's just a recording, but this is what they hear, is this guy say, "Oh, I'm feeling pain in my chest." And of course, the guy's going, incorrect. And then, right, if the teacher who is zapping him expresses any concern about maybe we should go check on this person, the response from the dude in the lab coat is always, the experiment must continue. So that sets this up. And I got a bit more to say after.
In contexts that conflicted with personal conscience. Milgram was motivated by the Holocaust and the trial of Adolf Eichmann, a high-ranking Nazi official who claimed he was just following orders in orchestrating the extermination of millions. The experiment sought to understand whether ordinary people could commit harmful acts under authoritative pressure. Participants were instructed to deliver increasingly severe electric shocks to a learner was an actor whenever they gave incorrect answers. Despite hearing cries of pain and pleas to stop, most participants continued administering shocks up to lethal levels when prompted by an authority figure wearing a lab coat and insisting, quote, "The experiment requires that you continue." The study revealed that 65% of participants obeyed commands to deliver the maximum voltage despite their visible distress. But it's not just extreme examples like this. Environmental factors shape our everyday decisions more than we realize. The nudge theory is that small changes in our surroundings can drastically influence our choices. For example, placing healthier food.
Yeah, so the thing that my prof pointed out was that he had been teaching that Milgram experiment for like 20 years. And that the last year previous, one of the students had a very interesting question that he said he blew off at first, but later reflected and went, you know, that's pretty profound. And the question was, did anybody refuse to shock the person even once? The answer is no. So, yeah, very interesting. We'll continue. Here we go.
Foods at eye level in a cafeteria can lead people to make better dietary decisions without them even noticing. This is an area of psychology that we know very little about, but it has become clear that sometimes when someone acts out a character, it's not necessarily who they are, it's where they are. Alright, now let's talk about one of the most uncomfortable truths about being human. We are really excellent at lying to ourselves. And no, I'm not just talking about you telling yourself you'll hit the gym tomorrow. I'm talking about the mental gymnastics we perform to justify actions or beliefs that don't align with who we think we are. This is called cognitive dissonance, and it's one of the most fascinating discoveries in psychology. When your actions and beliefs crash, your brain doesn't like it. That tension feels uncomfortable, so it works overtime to resolve the conflict. And more often than not, it does this by changing your beliefs to match your actions, rather than vice versa. Let's take a look at a classic experiment. In the 1950s, psychologist Leon Festinger asked participants to perform an incredibly boring task, turning wooden pegs on a board for an hour. Afterwards, some participants were paid $1 to tell the next group that the task was fun, while others were paid $20 to do the same thing. When asked if they actually found the task enjoyable, the $1 group was far more likely to say yes, because they had to justify lying for such a small reward. Their brains couldn't handle the inconsistency of, I told a lie for $1 and I'm not a liar, so they changed their belief to, maybe it wasn't so bad after all. This phenomenon isn't just limited to tedious tasks, it's everywhere. Think about the times you've doubled down on a bad decision, just because admitting you were wrong felt worse than sticking with it, or when you convinced yourself a purchase was worth it, even when deep down you knew it wasn't. Cognitive dissonance helps explain many aspects of human behavior, from political polarization to brand loyalty. It's why we dig in our heels during arguments, even when presented with clear evidence that we're wrong, because accepting that we made a mistake is often even harder.
Hang on. Hang on. Hold the phone, baby. Where does this start? Oh boy. Do we have a winner here? Cognitive dissonance. Yeah. Hang on. I just got to get the timings. Yes. Really? Where's my pad? Hang on. Where's... Hold on. Hold on there. I need that Earl. And I'm gonna have to make, like, you know, a note somewhere. No. I gotta make a note. Diddly-doo, diddly-doo, diddoo, 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 diddoo. Ah. And we got cognitive dissonance. One of the best explanations I ever did see. Don't know where it started. There it is.
Cognitive dissonance, and it's one of the most fascinating.
828? Okay. 8 colon. Oops. Colon 28. And we'll see. We went all the way. Oops. There we go. Somewhere in here.
We dig in our heels during arguments, even when presented with clear evidence that we're wrong, because accepting that we made a mistake is often even harder.
Okay. Diddle-doo, diddle-doo, diddle-doo. And that went to 946. All right. 9:46. 7. All right. You're going to make notes on awesome concept. Woo! Maybe I'll make an awesome concept video, you know? Okay, let's go.
Is often even harder. You probably think of memory as a mental filing cabinet, neatly storing all of your life experiences so that you can access them whenever necessary. But no, not quite. In fact, your memory is kind of like a messy artist, constantly editing, erasing, and redrawing parts of your past without you even realizing it. One of the most famous discoveries about memory's fragility comes from psychologist Elizabeth Loftus. She conducted a series of experiments showing how easily memories can be manipulated. In one study, participants were shown a video of a car accident and then asked questions about what they saw. Some were asked how fast were the cars going when they smashed into each other. Others were asked how fast were the cars going when they hit each other. The word choice made a huge difference. Those who heard smashed estimated the cars were going faster and were more likely to remember seeing broken glass, even though there wasn't any in the video. Just a single word planted a false detail in their minds. And it gets even weirder. In another study, Loftus and her team successfully implanted entirely false memories. They asked participants to recall a childhood event that never happened, like getting lost in a shopping center. With a little suggestion and encouragement, many participants started to remember the fake event, even adding vivid details of their own. This has profound real-world implications. Eyewitness testimony, for example, is notoriously unreliable. People swear they saw a suspect at a crime scene, but what they're really recalling could be a mix of what they saw, what they were told later, and what their brain has just filled in on its own. And it's not just big, dramatic memories that are unreliable. Everyday ones can be unreliable too. Have you ever sworn you left your keys on the counter only to find them in your bag, or argued with a friend about something you both remembered differently? That is your brain at work, rewriting history in real time.
Ooh, I think I like that too. Oh, I like the bystander.
If you were
effect.
walking down a busy city street
go
with
down
people everywhere
too.
and someone suddenly stumbles and collapses right in front of you, what would you do? Now, most people think they'd stop and help immediately. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The majority wouldn't. This phenomenon is called the bystander effect, and it's one of psychology's most uncomfortable discoveries. It became widely known after the 1964 murder of Kitty Genovese in New York City. Kitty was attacked outside her apartment building, and despite her screams for help, dozens of neighbors heard but didn't intervene. This tragedy sparked widespread outrage and raised a chilling question. Why didn't anyone do anything? Psychologists John Darley and Bib Latan decided to find out. They conducted experiments where participants believed they were overhearing someone in another room having a medical emergency. When people thought they were the only ones who could help, most took action. But their willingness to act dropped dramatically when they believed others were also listening. The more bystanders there were, the less likely anyone was to help. So, why does this happen? It's not because people are uncaring or cruel, it's psychological. First, there's the diffusion of responsibility, the assumption that someone else will step in. Then there's the social proof. We look to others to gauge how serious the situation is. If no one else acts, we hesitate, thinking it might not be an emergency after all. The bystander effect isn't just a historical or theoretical concept, it plays out daily. Think of videos on the internet where people walk past someone clearly in need, or moments when crowds witness injustices but remain silent. It's uncomfortable to admit, but any of us could fall into this trap under the right circumstances.
Yeah, the
Human behavior is far more interesting.
we had a situation a few years ago. I'm not sure. Could have been a while now, but there in the summertime, there's a very popular ice cream stand right by like the biggest park in the city, and it between the park and the ice cream stand is a very busy street, and a woman, I guess there was red light and people were crossing, and woman jumped out of the car and screaming help, 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 and a guy got out of the car with a knife and started stabbing her, and people did try to help, but like it's one of those where like they went to get a pipe, people went to get a pipe or a weapon to take the guy on before they tried to stop him, which was like she was long dead. So yeah. Sad but true. So next we'll go on to Untamed Mind.
Than we often give it credit for. We like to believe we're logical, independent, and in full control of our choices, but the truth is, our actions are shaped by a complex web of emotions, instincts, and social influences that operate beneath the surface of our awareness. It's a fascinating reminder that we're not just rational decision makers, we're deeply influenced by context, environment, and even the people around us. What makes this so compelling is how it shifts our perspective on everyday life. Why do people freeze in emergencies? Why do we stick to beliefs even when they're proven wrong? Or why does a seemingly small act of kindness ripple into something much bigger? Human behavior is far from predictable. But when you understand these psychological factors that we've looked at, we can begin to paint a rough image of how human beings operate. But that image is often completely different from what we imagine it to be.
Okay. Very, very, very cool. Yeah, I'd encourage you to definitely check out Sideprojects. So that was our science truth. So we can see some of these psychological, tools that are at play in our daily lives. So yeah, really cool stuff. Oops, stop. All right. So anyone have any questions, comments, or concerns before we move on to our next video? Whoa, 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 whoa. Oh, whoa, whoa. Oh, whoa. Whoa, 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 whoa. All right. None. All right. The next one. This was our religious truth for Sunday. So here we'll go with this. And I'll go away. And here we go. Oh, wait. You know what? Hold on. I didn't do the intro. This is how AI will replace God. Holy Koolaid. There we go. And we'll zoom out. And we'll grab that link because I won't be doing any of the support messages. So if you want to support this excellent content creator, yes, please do so. Yeah, I stand on the shoulders of giants. Here we go.
Imagine a scenario in the very near future where artificial intelligence has finally achieved what sci-fi writers have been warning us about for decades. Artificial general intelligence, a technological singularity. But instead of Skynet deciding to nuke all of us into oblivion, or the machines plugging us into the Matrix in order to use us like Duracell batteries, instead, humanity merges with this intelligence. Not like that, you weirdo. But imagine that we get lucky, and instead of this turning into a dystopian Black Mirror scenario, we instead gain access to an unparalleled mental upgrade, which can process information trillions of times faster than our current meat sacks. It's the biggest evolutionary leap since disposable thumbs. Wait, no, since opposable thumbs. Suddenly, every scientific paper ever published, every experiment ever conducted, every natural law we've discovered is all instantly comprehensible.
I know Kung Fu.
It's like upgrading from a Nokia 3310 to a quantum supercomputer, but for your brain. And unlike most dystopian films,
Grace not here anymore. I've taken over now.
you actually get to retain your humanity. All of the squishy human bits, your emotions, your consciousness, that burning desire to boop the adorable snoot of every single doggo that you see. Besides gaining mental superpowers and becoming damn near omniscient, you retain every single little aspect of who you are and what makes you you. Except for one very significant change. Everyone who plugs into this super intelligent system instantly becomes an atheist. Not because it steals their soul or forces them to renounce God, but because suddenly all of those pesky gaps that religious folks love to shove their particular God into get filled faster than Pastor Ted Haggard in a male hooker's car.
Are you a gay man?
No, actually, it's complicated.
You know the gaps I'm talking about. The ones creationists inevitably point to when they can't explain something. How did life arise from non-life? God done it. How did the eye evolve? God done it. Why does the universe appear so perfectly fine-tuned? You get the idea. But with super intelligent augmentation, these mysteries unravel, because most of them aren't mysteries at all. We may be missing some of the pieces of the puzzle, but all of the other pieces which we do have all create the same picture. And it's not creationism. There's a reason why most people with PhD level knowledge of topics like physics, biochemistry, neuroscience, and biology are not creationists. And as you would tap into this knowledge base of millions of such experts across every field of science, the process of abiogenesis, evolution, and stellar nuclear synthesis would become as obvious as 2 + 2 = 4. But this sudden clarity and subsequent mass deconversion would create an inevitable conundrum for billions of religious observers contemplating mental augmentation. Inevitably, paranoid televangelists and megapastors would begin treating this super intelligent system like Satan's latest software update, because apparently learning too much is still humanity's original.
I remember literally, I was a super holy roller until this. And that was a pastor in a Methodist church in 88, talking about doing a whole sermon on how computers were evil. Like not just this or that, but all of them. They were just, and I was like, there's some holes in this logic. So, yeah, I see where he's going.
Sin. We would finally have access to all knowledge and information ever collected, unlocking access to near omniscience, gaining the ability to process vast amounts of information, understanding the intricacies of reality with unparalleled clarity. Every experiment ever conducted, every law of nature, every cognitive bias, self-delusion, and logical fallacy would be laid bare before us, allowing us to see as a species for the first time with clarity every cognitive mistake and mental blunder we've ever made. We would finally have access to undeniable truth. And the traditional religious gatekeepers of truth would undoubtedly dissuade their followers from accessing it, urging them to remain shackled to their Bronze Age fairy tales. In this scenario, the religious opposition to augmented intelligence would create a schism in society. On one side, you've got the augmented crowd, their enhanced intelligence unlocking unparalleled opportunities. They're securing high-paying jobs, solving complex problems, and advancing fields like medicine, creating new vaccines and eliminating diseases. On the other side, the unaugmented, mostly religious fundamentalists, would essentially become the Amish of the future on steroids. Like on a global scale. They would scrape by on whatever low-skill, low-paying jobs they could find, which don't require superhuman intelligence and haven't been replaced by robots. The skill set chasm would be monumental. Religious folks would fight back, of course. Muslim extremist nations would probably ban the technology and continue to remain in the Dark Ages. And even in developed countries, religious Luddites would probably create their own enclaves, fostering cultural and ideological polarization. Some would file lawsuits trying to ban or limit the use of the technology, but they would be up against multi-billion-dollar corporations with teams of lawyers, each with augmented intelligence themselves, who have every law, every court case, and every legal loophole memorized and accessible to them like that. Some paranoid Christian preachers would warn their followers that the augmentation is clearly the mark of the beast, because apparently Satan is really into transhumanism. There would be a culture war that makes the current political climate look like a friendly game of patty cake, but inevitably, they would lose, because they're up against almost infinitely smarter opponents. Over time, the unaugmented just wouldn't be able to compete. Their numbers would dwindle, and they would become a bit of an anomaly. Religion would possibly continue to serve a role even for the augmented, but not as a moral framework or to explain how we got here. It would instead fill an emotional or community need. Likely, religion itself would evolve. But while this scenario may seem hypothetical, this outright rejection of facts, knowledge, and education, this embracing of anti-intellectualism, isn't. And it's why this thought experiment hits so close to home. We're already seeing this pattern play out, just on a smaller scale. For the last 9 years of running Holy Koolaid, I have watched what happens when you fill these God gaps with actual knowledge. When you show people the pagan origins of Christianity, the historical inaccuracies, internal contradictions, and scientific errors of their holy texts. When you teach people what we already know about abiogenesis, evolution by natural selection, and the Big Bang. Those spiritual experiences which most people don't know how to explain, I've covered extensively, showing natural explanations for things like near-death experiences, sleep paralysis, as well as things that people mistake for ghosts. We don't need the supernatural to account for these things. Even if those were our earliest explanations, they weren't our best. Even the authors of the Bible thought that seizures were caused by demons. And when I first experienced sleep paralysis as a Christian, I thought it was a demonic attack. When I present this information to people, some of them embrace it. Their eyes light up when they realize that we can know how the world works, and they realize that science is way cooler than Sunday school ever was. Not satisfied with dogma and simplistic faith-based answers, they pursue knowledge. But others inevitably bury their heads so deep in the sand that they strike dinosaur fossils, which they probably assume Satan put there to test their faith. And the ironic thing is that back when I was a Christian, I was taught, in the words of Jesus, that the truth will set you free. But while Jesus, in cult leader fashion, claimed that the truth was found by dogmatically holding fast to his every word and teaching, religious adherents are faced with an alternate choice: to actually follow the evidence wherever it might lead. And sadly, when it's the truth itself that threatens their worldview, they all too often proudly embrace ignorance like a badge of honor, shut their minds down, and stomp around like they've accomplished something. But if the God of the Quran or the Bible is real, why would an all-powerful, all-knowing God be threatened by human knowledge? Why would the creator of the universe need to hide in the shadows of our ignorance, inhabiting ever-shrinking gaps? If God exists, wouldn't learning about reality just reveal more of his or her handiwork? Instead, we see religious folks fighting tooth and nail against scientific advancement. It's almost like they know deep down that their beliefs can't survive the light of evidence, so they trash-talk universities, spread mistrust of science, riddle the airwaves with misinformation and conspiratorial thinking, and they keep rehashing the same garbage apologetic arguments which were debunked centuries ago. But truth withstands scrutiny. And to paraphrase PC Hodgel, any idea which can be destroyed by the truth deserves to be. Because that's really what it comes down to. Are you brave enough to follow the evidence wherever it leads? Are you willing to let go of your comforting fantasies in pursuit of actual truth? Because contrary to what religion teaches us, the real original sin isn't eating from the tree of knowledge. It's refusing to. Now, if you appreciate the work that I do and you want to help my mission of promoting scientific skepticism and critical thinking, you can support my work with either a one-time PayPal donation or an ongoing per-video pledge on patreon.com/holykoolaid. Your support helps way more than you think, even if it's just a couple bucks a video. It helps keep the lights on and the videos are churning out and allows me to continue doing this full-time. Thank you everyone so much for your ongoing support, and as always, dare to be curious, but don't drink the Kool-Aid.
Oh yeah. Cool. Wow. That's a very powerful video. Did I put that in chat? I think I did. Yep. Okay. Any comments or questions or ideas? Okay. Okay. Well, let's see. Yeah, we had the next ones. Excuse me. Were various ones. Excuse me. For, I think there's 3 videos that were for Men's Truth Day. See here, that was, guys, find your ugly duckling. Let's see here. Here we go.
This is PsycHacks, Better Living Through Psychology. And the topic of today's short talk is find your ugly...
Wait a sec. I forgot the intro. Here we go. Guys, find your ugly duckling, or how to find a good woman. PsycHacks is the author. And please consider supporting the author. He makes excellent content. And here you go.
I'm Dr. Orion Taraban, and this is PsycHacks, Better Living Through Psychology. And the topic of today's short talk is find your ugly duckling. I did one for the ladies, now this one's for the men. Hey fellas, I'm talking to you today. And I'm going to share with you what I believe to be an optimal dating strategy with respect to finding a suitable female partner. As a guy, I know that we're primarily attracted to physical attributes. And you know what? God bless it, there's nothing quite like a beautiful woman, right? However, this priority can really get a guy into trouble. Now, I'm 39 years old, and I've dated many, many women in my life, including some that I would consider 9s and 10s, like internationally gorgeous women. And while this wasn't universally the case, many of those women were extremely difficult to be in a relationship with for a variety of reasons. One of them we could call a sense of entitlement. I remember I was once in a relationship with a woman. She was 25 years old at the time, and she told me I was the first man who had ever told her no. Can you imagine what that would do to a person? Being an incredibly beautiful woman is kind of the equivalent of being some billionaire's scion. You just grow up with this extremely distorted view of life and other people. Do you think folks like this typically have the emotional intelligence, let alone the distress tolerance, to enter into a normal give and take relationship? I mean, temper tantrums are not a good look at any age, but they are really ugly at 25 or 35 for that matter. Here's another reason. It's often the case that when women blossom earlier in life, they can receive the kind of attention and priority that disincentivizes them from developing other aspects of themselves, their personality, their interests, their skills, their career, the kinds of things that make them good and interesting and lovable, and the kinds of things that make it easier to have a relationship with them. And let me tell you, the older I get, the more effortlessness in a relationship matters to me. I have a lot going on, and the woman I'm looking for needs to be able to seamlessly integrate herself into that frame. The more friction there is, the more the relationship draws time, energy, and attention away from the great things that we both could otherwise be experiencing. You get what I'm saying? So, man, my advice to you is to look for your ugly duckling. This is an allusion to that Hans Christian Andersen story about a weird-looking duck who grew up to be a beautiful swan. Some women blossom at different stages in life. And I've dated some very, very attractive women who didn't really come into their own into their late 20s or even their early 30s. I know this because I've seen their pictures, and I honestly think they're better looking today than they were 10 years ago. And these women have all been significantly easier and more satisfying to relate to than the 9s and 10s. They are still plenty attractive, but they frankly just have more to offer than their looks. To find an ugly duckling, you need to pay attention to her stories. Maybe she never had a boyfriend in high school, or she was reserved in college. This can mean that she was devoting time and energy to developing herself, or some other character building exercise, like starting a business or caring for a loved one. It also likely means that she doesn't take male attention for granted. I get it. Some of those Instagram girls are total smoke shows. However, if you're going after a woman like that, get ready to compete with 10,000 other guys. And now you have the same problem as the women that are hanging out at the winner's circle. It's probably not going to work out, and you could waste a good deal of time, energy, and money in the process. Your attention will also not be valuable to one of those women, but it might be to an ugly duckling. Now, obviously, you need to be authentically attracted to this woman. That's the beautiful swan part of the story. But a late blooming, after a potentially awkward character development phase, can be a very positive sign for mate selection. This kind of forces her to develop other parts of herself independent of her looks, and it increases the value of your attention and relationship. What do you think? Remember to like, comment, and subscribe for the algorithm. And if you'd like to schedule a consultation, you can reach me at psychackspodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.
All right. So that's the long and the short of finding a mate. Probably in your 30s, looking for a good guy for your 60s. Yeah, okay. So, after this is, I can attest to this. This video is put out by a lady called the Happy Wife School, and I think her videos kind of focus on how how can I describe it? Women can be caustic to their relationships without realizing. I certainly know. Boy, I experienced it. So here's her take, and yeah. Can I zoom in here? Zoom. 4 steps to stop being bullied by your wife. Okay. Let's throw that in chat so you can support her. Okay. There we go. And
How
boom.
to overcome being bullied by your wife.
Didn't get that.
You have to overcome and know how to overcome being bullied by your wife. So what I would like to do is teach, how do you overcome being bullied by your wife? What are the steps? So the first way to overcome being bullied by your wife as a good man, this is critical. You have to know that you are a good man. What the emasculation and the gaslighting and the manipulation does to a good man is it causes him to question and lose sight of and not know if he's a good man or not. I have talked with more good men than not who, because of how they've been treated in the marriage by their wife and her woman ways, and it's so clear they're good men, they're gentle-natured, they're hardworking, they're trying to do whatever they know to do to make things better. They always, when this is so fascinating to me, I don't think it will ever not be fascinating when I talk with a good man or I get an email or an application to talk about the course. He will share all the ways that his wife treats him poorly and what he doesn't know to do about in terms of what's going on in the marriage. And then they will always add something like, but she's a really compassionate and caring person. That's the nature of a good man, that in spite of how he's being treated and how his wife is showing up, he still sees the goodness in her or the potential. Blows my mind. And that's why I put in the thumbnail for today of we're lucky as women, we're lucky to be married to good men and in their nature to still see and want to see the good things or still want to try to make the marriage work in spite of the awful ways that we can show up. So you have to be grounded in knowing yourself as a good man. It's the crack in your foundation of questioning that in yourself that allows your wife to emasculate you and gaslight you, to question that and to think that you're the problem in the marriage and the relationship. So you have to spend some time looking at, how do you show up with your kids? How do you show up at work? How do you show up with strangers? What's your intention in your marriage? What's the nature of who you know yourself to be? And really be connected to knowing yourself as a good man. Your wife can't bully you when you know you're a good person and you know you're a good man, because you can hear the things she's telling you about who you are. When you're grounded in knowing who you are and knowing you're a good man, you can know, no, that's not me. Doesn't mean a good man's perfect or doesn't make mistakes. But his intention isn't to be hurtful, and his intention isn't what we can make a good man feel in our accusations of them as women. The second step to overcome being bullied by your wife is you have to know the reality of the relationship, and you have to know the reality of your wife as a woman. That you can still, because it's your nature as a good man, still love and adore her in spite of the crazy making and emasculation and her poor behaviors and unwillingness to change. That's just the nature of a good man. In order to not be bullied and sucked into the gaslighting and manipulation and emasculation, you have to know the truth of your wife and her woman ways. You can, like I said, you can still love her and see the good things, but you also have to be in the reality of the nature of her and her woman ways to emasculate, gaslight, and manipulate you. When you don't see the reality of what's happening, that's when you doubt your own perception of reality and get sucked into it and believe that you are the problem and that there's somehow something you need to do or stop doing that's going to make her happy and change the relationship for the better. Is that's not going to happen. I would recommend going to watch Do I Need to Retire from Making My Wife Happy under the live section. That's the last live I did, to learn more about you. There's nothing you're going to do or stop doing that's going to make her happy or stop these behaviors in her. So you have to know the reality. This is who she is. She's not willing to change. These are the ways that she can show up and treat me and can make me feel really bad about myself. That's the reality. And when you know that, then that's where you can be grounded and, again, not be bullied. The third step to overcome being bullied by your wife is you have to know the woman way of play. You have to assume, not in a pessimistic way, not in a doomsday way, but you have to assume and know that your wife, if she's unhappy and unwilling to work on herself and change, you have to assume she's always in a woman way that I talk about on the channel. Go watch any of my videos to learn more about her woman ways. You have to know she's always in a woman way and assume that, so that you can learn to see it and anticipate it and not get blindsided by it. So a good word to encapsulate all the woman ways is what we're talking about today, is bullying. You have to know your wife is a bully and her intentions and her woman ways. Here's your wife's intentions as a woman in her woman ways. She wants to overpower you. She wants to tear you down and pick you apart. She wants to intimidate you to get her way in what she wants. And she wants you weak and unable to stand up. And she wants to be in control at all times. Here's your wife's intentions in her woman ways as a bully. I'm going to say it one more time. She wants to overpower you. She wants to tear you down and pick you apart. She wants to intimidate you to get her way and what she wants. She wants you weak and unable to stand up to her. And she wants to be in control at all times. This is not, while it feels very personal and it is an attack on you, it's not a reflection of you and what you're doing or not doing. It's a reflection of your wife and how she feels about herself internally. It comes from our fear of being out of control and our deeply unhealthy relationship with ourselves and how we feel about ourselves that we don't want to look at, don't want to know, don't know what to do with. And so we take it out on our husbands. So men, this is the intention of what's happening. So when you're up against your wife and her being a bully in her woman ways, you need to know this is what's at play. So again, you can stay grounded in the reality and anticipate what's happening and know it and navigate it in a way to where you don't get sucked into it. The last step in overcoming being bullied by your wife: stop trying to make your wife happy and put that energy into making yourself happy. What that means is reconnecting with the things you used to like to do and enjoy doing before you weren't allowed by your wife to do those things anymore, and she took over and took control. Reconnect with your hobbies. Reconnect with the things you enjoy doing. Go to the gym. Have guy time with your guy friends. Watch your football game. Watch your sports. Play a video game. You have to do the things that allow you to feel good about yourself and allow you to create a life so that you have a sense of fulfillment and meaning in yourself while navigating an unhappy marriage with an unhappy woman. And for a good man who has been emasculated and made to feel wrong and bad, it can feel very terrifying to stop putting that energy into trying to make your wife happy and put that energy into yourself and doing things for yourself because of what's the retaliation going to be from my wife?
Oh, I can tell you. Oh, wait a sec. Oh yeah. I think you get tossed out. I think that has been my experience. Because yeah, you ain't no more than you. So there's that. Continue on.
So here's the perspective you want to take. You're already in the doghouse. She's already unhappy. She's already upset. So you're not going to be more in the doghouse. She's not going to be angrier. She's just going to be angry and upset. It won't make her happy if you don't do these things. She's still going to be unhappy. So be okay. Learn to be, a phrase that I use from time to time in teaching is learn to be comfortable in the uncomfortable of your wife being upset with you. It's not about you. She's unhappy and she's taking it out on you. So she's going to be unhappy. So you might as well take that energy that you're trying to put into her to make her happy, which isn't going to work, and put it into yourself and do the things you enjoy, regardless of if that makes her upset or not, because she's already upset. Let her be unhappy because she's unhappy and it's not your fault. You didn't make her unhappy. You have to start rethinking that if you're doing things to try to make your wife happy and she's just unhappy, it's like what I say, she's an empty bucket with holes. It's an abyss. It's an empty abyss. And when you throw your energy into that, it drains you, it sucks the life out of you. And that's where you're most susceptible and vulnerable to how she can crush you in those woman ways.
Oh
when
yeah.
you put that energy into yourself and you accept she's going to be upset and angry anyway. So I might as well do this for myself so I can be my best. It rebuilds your sense of self. It makes you feel good about yourself. You regain your confidence. And that's what gives you the tenacity to navigate the marriage in a constructive way. So again, you can be in acceptance and content in your choice to stay. Stop putting your energy in the empty bucket with holes.
Cool. So, any thoughts, ideas, questions, comments, concerns? Okay. Hearing none. We'll move on to the next video here. I've got personal experience with this. I will tell a tale at the appropriate point. And yeah, we'll go through the video here. This is zoom. How women train men to be angry. Don't reward what you don't want. All right. We'll go and also, we didn't know. We did not have this in here. Please visit the authors. I stand on the shoulders of greatness. Here we go. Let's go.
I'm Dr. Orion Taraban, and this is PsycHacks, Better Living Through Psychology. And the topic of today's short talk is how women train men to be angry. This is something that many women do, and that many women do inadvertently. And this, of course, is to be expected, as few women prefer to be in the presence of male anger. In fact, most find male anger terrifying, which makes their contribution to this process all the more tragic and ironic. And this is not to say that men don't have their share of responsibility in this. After all, they inadvertently allow themselves to be trained in this way. However, if women can come to appreciate how they may be perversely incentivizing male anger, it will go a long way toward reducing unnecessary relationship conflict. To explain how this process occurs, I'm going to begin by sharing an anecdote from my own life. Now, I am by no means a perfect person. However, all other things being equal, I'm a fairly patient guy. In the last 10 years, I can count the number of times I've raised my voice on one hand. And all of those times have been associated with two specific women. I was in a long-term relationship with one of these women many years ago, and I remember having a lot of trouble getting through to her. And this was really puzzling to me because I know that I'm actually an exceptional communicator. I'm articulate and precise in my words, and I have good command of tone and expression to clearly indicate my emotion. In general, I don't have a problem transmitting my message to my intended audience. However, when I brought certain issues to her attention, for whatever reason, my words just didn't seem to penetrate her understanding. In the moment, it would seem as though she understood. However, when the conversation was over, she'd just go back to doing whatever it was that she was doing before, as if the discussion had never happened. And in the beginning, I just assumed that this was my fault, that I hadn't yet used the right words to represent how important this was to me or how disrespectful and hurtful her behavior was. I assumed that if she understood this, she would have to change her behavior, and the fact that she hadn't changed her behavior was proof that she hadn't yet understood. Therefore, the solution was to try again and to communicate more clearly and effectively than before. And I did try again. Many, 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 many times. Not only that, I used all the various communication strategies and psychological tactics I had at my disposal to get my point across, and none of them worked. I was calm, I was patient, I sought to understand rather than be understood. I tried everything I could to let her know that her behavior was problematic and that I wanted it to stop, all to no avail. Until one day, after scores of unsuccessful attempts to get through to her, I had it. I snapped, I lost my temper, and I yelled and screamed at her. And guess what happened? For the first time ever in the history of that relationship, she apparently heard what I said and she changed her behavior. And it was at this point that I realized that I had to take myself out of that relationship, which I subsequently did. Why? Because if the only way I could be heard in my relationship was by raising my voice and becoming increasingly aggressive, then I would be molded into an angry, aggressive man over time. Neither one of us would have wanted that outcome, but that's what would have happened. If nothing changed, that relationship was headed to a very dark place, as I would have functionally had to choose between being angry and being ignored. Women, you have to understand that the vast majority of men don't escalate to anger immediately, and you should just leave any man who does. Rather, the vast majority of men will try to communicate with their women many, many, many times in different ways, using different strategies before resorting to anger. And this is how women inadvertently train their men to be angry, by ignoring, disrespecting, or invalidating them when they attempt to communicate non-aggressively. And as should be abundantly obvious, this is very, very stupid. Now, before I go any further, if you're liking what you're hearing, please consider sending this episode to someone who might benefit from its message, because it's word of mouth referrals like this that really help to make the channel grow. And if you want to donate to the mission of this channel, you can go to my website and tip me in proportion to the value you feel you've derived from this episode using the Venmo link provided. I'm doing it this way so I can get more of that donation without giving YouTube a cut. I really appreciate your support. You make all of this happen. Thank you very much. Now, if a man, for whatever reason, can't seem to get through to his woman about something important to him, if he remains unheard time and time again, then there are really only three things that can happen. The first thing that can happen is that the man will escalate to anger and aggression. For better or worse, most men are going to attempt this strategy first before moving on to one of the two remaining options. In general, when people don't feel heard, they get louder. This is often counterproductive, especially in intersexual relationships. However, it is one of the remaining options when reason and understanding fail. And just to be clear, this isn't always a bad thing. After all, men are socially expected to be protectors, and they are encouraged to fight for the things that matter to them. Typically, one of the things that matters to men are their primary relationships. Now, when the security of that relationship is threatened by, say, a home invader, few women would have a problem with their men fighting to defend their relationships. However, when it is a woman's behavior that threatens the security of the relationship, then men are placed in a double bind. They feel pulled to protect the relationship, but doing so functionally means they end up fighting the woman who constitutes that relationship. If they don't fight, they lose. If they do fight, they lose. This is unwise, women. It is not wise to put men in double binds unnecessarily. And this is because after most men escalate to anger and aggression and find it to be counterproductive, they are left with only two real courses of action. Either the man collapses internally in order to protect himself from the pain associated with his continued invalidation, becoming over time a shell of his former self, or he leaves.
So, right there, let's just go ahead. We'll just have fun. Interesting. I'm looking for the wrong place for mouse. Okay, so here's my story. So, you know the collapse part and how talk about trying to do stuff for yourself in our last video. Well, tried doing stuff for myself, but pretty much collapsed in the last years of my relationship. Anyway, so I started going through a program, got much better, feel much better, have a very different perspective on things. And one thing that came out of this, so in a nutshell, way back, I don't know when it was. It was early in the year. I was breaking down a lot, so we had a meeting, my ex and I, and she we went through agreement. We were going to come over to an agreement. And one of the things that was going to come up was that I knew that I was going to get a payout for my vacation pay. So, okay, great. So I brought that up, and I knew it was going to be over $9,000, and that there was going to be a period of time where there was going to be a gap between my salary and my disability pays coming in. So that money had to bridge that gap. So it was about $2,000. So, yeah, so there was about $7,000 left that would have been left over. So we had agreed to that, and that the vacation bay, this was brought up very early in the conversation. I brought it up, and she said, you know what? That's great. That's your vacation pay. That's all yours. Because, I mean, I earned it over the time after we split up, but she still controlled all the bank accounts. So that was fine until the money showed up in the account. And then the second it was there, poof, it was gone. Out of the account into one of the many unknown accounts. Yes, hundreds, who knows. Anyway, so she then paid the bills after that month, and then changed her story that she gave me $3,000 after I think the month, and then she said she'd give me the rest after I signed an agreement. And oh yeah, I forgot about the agreement. I left something hanging. So that day that you said I could have the 7,000, right? I forgot a very important piece. So she said that I could have this money and that would be what it was for. But then we started going through the debts that she had. Fine, $12,000, no problem. And then the assets, the condo, the equity in the condo, the vehicle, the, things like my pension and those things. And she suddenly realized that in order, there was no way that she could have or hang on to the condo and the car and all of the assets. So she got kind of emotional, and I thought, well, she came to the table fair and square. All right, fine, whatever, all yours. You came to the table fair and square. I'm fine with that. So anyway, so that was how we wound up agreeing. Got the condo, got the car, right? Anyway, and then and then the whoop, hey, let's take all the money, and then we're gonna give him 3,000. Hang on to the rest until I signed the agreement. That was in, I don't know, I say June. Could have been before. I think it was June when the 30 days had happened. And I was like, okay, here we go. Moving the goalposts. But I was, you see my other videos, it was a contributing factor into the Father's Day event. Anyway, so I just had no capacity to do anything about it. Anyway, so then after around my birthday, this has got to be confronted. So I tried in about, I don't know, 50 ways to explain, okay, this is a betrayal. Anyway, so during this conversation, where I was trying to explain this, and I was again and again, this is my perception. It's interesting how her perception's always the one that's right. Doesn't even have to acknowledge what damage any of it does to anyone else. Anyway, so yes, so I got trying to explain this, and then he throws out that I had cheated on her, or some comment. Don't make threats. You cheated on me, and I'm just like, huh? What is this? This is a bomb tactic. Oh, this ain't gonna stand. That's garbage. Because I was faithful for all the time we were together. Yeah. So there's no evidence. Good luck. Bye bye. That's liable. So anyway, I decided that what I would do is I want an apology. And I decided of course, the anger route. I decided that the best way to handle the situation would be to go with increasing revelation of details of Catherine's they called it cognitive dissonance in this video that we just watched a little while ago. Ooh, once she digs in, something, wow. And my examples of how increasing examples and more drastic examples of how she used tactics in various places where she worked to cause very hostile environments. So that was what I was going to get into. And then I was sitting there and I'm all stressed out. I'm like, I want an apology. And I was, getting ready for day one, and I was working through the slides, and I'm like, I'm going to have to go. I'm already feeling stressed out. This has knocked me off my routine. This is the crash. This is how I got here. Being ignored and not heard. So I think I'm not going to do this. So instead, I just sent a text. Here's my offer. I'm done. And then I got a text later. Like, oh, and I said, I'm not talking to you anymore. You're just, no. You're just never, ever going to be capable of having that conversation. So I'm done. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I have some songs that I've been singing today that we'll be playing later, like Little Miss Can't Be Wrong, Destiny's Child, Independent Woman, and The Offspring, Why Don't You Get a Job, followed by Jerry Reed, You Got the Gold Mine, I Got the Shaft, followed by Eric Heatherly, Flowers on the Wall. So that's what's coming up in a bit. Where were we here? Boink. Back here. Next up, if there's no questions, we'll move on. And yeah. Let's go. Next video. Oh, wait. Were we finished? Wait a second. Were we finished? No.
That's it. Those are the only options a man has when dealing with a woman who won't listen to him. He will either escalate, collapse, or leave. There are no other options. Now, women, does this mean that you simply have to cater to men's every desire? Absolutely not. However, it does mean that it's in your best interests either to rectify problematic behavior as quickly as possible or to find ways to ensure that you disagree with your man in a way that does not leave him feeling invalidated or disrespected. In general, you should take respectful requests from the men in your life seriously because they may not remain patient and respectful indefinitely. And you wouldn't expect them to remain indefinitely patient and respectful if they were dealing with anyone else who was threatening your relationship. Failure to do this functionally ensures that you will experience more and more conflict in your relationship until you end up either A, with the defeated shell of your man's former self, or B, alone. And how do either one of these outcomes serve you? And just for the record, just like I encouraged you to simply leave any man who immediately escalates to anger, I encourage every man I work with to simply leave any woman who refuses to respect his boundaries or listen to his reasonable requests. Fighting with a woman isn't worth it for a man because there's no way he can win. And staying in a relationship until he is a husk of his former self is an even more devastating outcome. This means the best possible move when dealing with such women is for men to exit as quickly and graciously as possible. I've since learned my lesson, and you can too. What do you think? Does this fit with your own experience? Let me know in the comments below. And if you've gotten this far, you might as well like this episode and subscribe to this channel. You may also consider becoming a channel member with perks like the priority review of comments or booking a paid consultation. As always, thank you for listening.
Booyah! Good video. Excellent video. Okay, next one. Any questions? Concerns? Comments? Okay. Going once? Going twice? Going 3 times? Going 4 times? Maybe 5. Okay. Here we go. This is by Hughes. Life is a video game. Here's how to win. 17 minutes. Excellent. Let's go. Here we go.
Life might not be a video game, but it certainly feels like it. So here is the tutorial and a review. I've been playing Earth video game since I spawned onto the map in 1981. I'm not one of the most experienced players, but I wanted to make a review or a tutorial here for you. I'm also going to share a few tricks on how you can hack the game. Closer to the end of the video, I'm going to share with you how to truly beat the game and get on the leaderboard. So basically, when you start the game Earth, you're dropped straight into the tutorial phase, and the developers call this childhood. And you learn the basics, how to interact, survive, and get by. But the thing is, this tutorial barely scratches the surface of what you'll need to know to play Earth really well and level up your character. In most games, when you choose a character, you get to break down all their strengths and weaknesses so you can plan accordingly. But in Earth, that is not how it works. The deep traits, the strengths and the flaws of your character are kept hidden from you on purpose. You don't get any guide telling you what you're naturally good at or where you might struggle. And the developers designed it this way. You have to dig, you have to work, you've got to explore and understand who your character really is. And most players who play Earth spend their entire lives without ever fully knowing their character's true potential. And they get stuck playing Earth on the surface level, and they miss out on the depth that could change the way they experience the entire game. One of the goals that you get in the game is bringing new players into the game. My character recently committed to another character named Michelle, and we used the game mechanics and the in-game coins to bring another user into the game, and we named her Hannah, and she's just now starting the tutorial phase. And this is a hard mission, so I would wait until you think your character's ready, because the game mechanics make you literally walk the character all the way through the entire tutorial phase if you decide to make a new character. Even though they start going to a different map location where other characters are going to help them for like 8 hours a day, this is called school. So not all players get the same tutorial. Some get a pretty easy start, and some have to face some serious crap right from the beginning of the game. But no matter what kind of intro that you get, Earth hides a lot of key details from every character. And you might think you've got your strengths and weaknesses nailed down, but the truth is there's always more to uncover. There's abilities and traits that come to light through missions and unlocking new levels of Earth. So the true goal is to know your character really deeply. So the biggest mistake that players on Earth make is assuming that they know their character just because they've been playing it for a while. But if you really want to thrive, you've got to go deeper. Most people never reach this level of insight. They're too caught up in reacting to the game's weird randomness instead of taking the time to learn who their character is. The game developers didn't give you the answers up front, and they won't make it easy for you to find. But once you do, Earth upgrades from just a survival game into this badass quest of self-mastery with brand new level unlocks and a lot more coins after the upgrade. And then we have glitches. Here's one of the biggest things that nobody tells you when you start playing Earth. Your character is probably running way too many programs at one time. If you imagine having 50 tabs open on your browser all the time. So the game developers turned off the open programs alert by default. So most players don't even realize that it's happening. And these programs keep running in the background. They cause your character to lag, and they reduce our critical abilities, our focus, and our overall performance just goes way down. In Earth, these background programs could be anything from unresolved tasks, emotional baggage that your character tries to hold on to, distractions, or habits that just don't level up your character at all. And then we get into entropy. This is the silent killer. If you don't keep revisiting your systems, how you're earning in-game points and coins, and what you're focusing on and how you're playing, you're going to start trending toward entropy. And this is true for all video games. And entropy is the slow drift into chaos and disorder that stops your character from focusing on what really matters. So to beat entropy, you've got to study Earth. You have to study the mechanics of this game. its rules, its hidden systems, and the more you understand how the game really works, the better you can control your character's progress. But let's be very real here. Most players will not put in the time, which makes leveling up fairly easy compared to most games. And the good news for you is you don't have to do it alone. You can hire someone to hack your account for you, like a coach. Coaches have studied the game, they know the shortcuts and the hacks to get you back on track faster than if you try to just figure out the whole game by yourself. And another way to reset your character and close some of those open programs is by using certain glitches in the game. One of the most effective glitches might be psychedelics. And if your character is in a location where psychedelics are legal, you can find them in the in-game shop and
this
trade.
one kind of surprised me. Something I don't know. Like, psychedelics is a hack. I'd like to know to what
coins
where?
for them. The more programs you close and the better you manage entropy, the more you can level up, earn more coins, and do stuff that is fun. In Earth, there are 5 key mechanics that no amount of AI or any kind of automation can really take over. And these are the pillars of real success on Earth, and every character has to master them. So number 1 is connections and love. Building relationships with other characters is one of the most powerful mechanics in the game, and they're going to really pay off for you in the long run. The second one is production. So meaningful work is a core mechanic in the Earth game. And this isn't just about grinding for coins, it's about developing purpose. So what you produce, whether it's physical or intellectual or creative, gives your character a reason to keep playing the game. It's super important. Then we have number 3, which is mindset. How your character thinks is everything in this game. Your internal game is just as important as the external, and there's no AI that can replace your ability to grow and adapt mentally. So choose good missions and good quests to take your character on. And number 4 is your overall character health. Monitoring your character's health is super important for taking the game's quests on and challenges. And this isn't just about physical health, it's about keeping your character in the best shape mentally and emotionally and physically. They have a lot of crap that you have to monitor, but it's totally worth it. And a healthy character performs way better, making it easier to get success and earn coins in the game. But it does get tricky. The game is filled with instant pleasures that look like you're leveling up, but it gives you a placebo. And these are things that give your character a quick boost, but there's no long-term benefit. Enjoyment, on the other hand, comes from achieving meaningful goals and staying aligned with your purpose. So the final goal of the developers is to get you to understand the game. Like, what is the purpose of the game? And this is the meta mechanic of the game. So studying the game itself. The more you understand the rules, the mechanics, and how they interact, the better you're going to play this game. And you can't outsource this to AI. And it's the difference between just surviving in Earth and truly thriving and leveling up your character like crazy. In Earth, the real secret to enjoying the gameplay is designing your own quests. And of course, the developers have pre-built missions and quests that you can go on, and they're almost limitless, challenges that keep you busy. But if you want to play like a pro, you need to take full control. The players that are famous for getting the most points in this game don't actually wait for the game to give them tasks. They make their own, and they shape how their character's story unfolds themselves. So Stephen Kotler, who's one of the characters in the game map right now, he wrote a tutorial called The Art of Impossible. He lays out a framework that's perfect for creating your own quests here on Earth. You can think of these like custom missions that you get to choose rather than letting the game pick for you. So number 1 is curiosity. In Earth, it drives your character toward exploration and new levels. And the more you follow curiosity, the more unique and exciting your quests are going to get. If you ignore it, you're going to get stuck in a lot of predictable crap. The second is passion. This is your quest compass, guiding toward missions that matter. And when you connect what excites you with what you're good at, your custom quests get really easy to put together. And the third is purpose. So think of this like your ultimate quest line in the game. This is the legacy that your character is going to leave behind. Purpose-driven quests aren't just about completing tasks. They're about creating something meaningful in the game, something that allows other characters to level up themselves in a same or similar way. It's one of the ways that you can get the other players to put your character's name on crap all around the map, and they will talk about you after you exit the game. Then we have autonomy. Autonomy gives you control over your character's direction instead of accepting default quests handed to you. And then we have mastery. The more practice and refinement that you do to your skills, the more powerful your character gets. And this gives you tools to take on even more challenging quests, and it gives you more coins to use in the shops. And as a pro tip, build your quests that avoid your character's anti-vision. The dystopian future that you absolutely don't want in the game, almost every player ignores this, and they never spend time to lay out the things that they do not want to occur. Once your quests get mapped out, it's time to build your mission goals, and you can think of them as checkpoints along your journey. These goals become the specific tasks that your character is going to tackle and level up, and they'll keep you focused on what matters and keep out of distraction mode. But then when it comes to distraction mode, there's something called the NPC trap. The developers added a trick to convert real players into NPCs, which is non-playable characters. If you're not familiar with NPCs, they're basically the characters in video games that don't have any real control over their actions. They just kind of repeat these routines over and over without any purpose or growth, like a shopkeeper or something like that. In Earth, this trap is very real, and it's right in front of us. Every time that your character gets sucked into social media, spends hours doom scrolling, politics, and basically you let the character get consumed by whatever media is making them pay attention to, you're walking right into NPC territory. One of the other ways they do this is by convincing you to keep learning and gathering information by taking game tutorials and never using that information on quests. Lots of game tutorials out there. Most people don't use them. They get addicted to the game tutorials. The developers don't want every player reaching the higher levels of development, so they flood the entire game with these distractions, and they make sure a lot of characters never get past a certain point. It's pretty brilliant. They seduce people with the easy stuff, and before they know it, they've become an NPC, just following trends and distractions that are out there. So all characters are prone to this, so be careful if you decide to try out Earth. Here's the way to hack that. The more you force your character to focus on what really matters, your decade, your year, your monthly goals, the less likely you are to fall into this trap. So keep your eyes on the long term. You level up your character a lot faster, and you get to complete missions and quests instead of wasting your character in low energy loops. They use low energy because it conserves memory processing for the game. At this point, you start seeing how much of the game is designed to derail you and how many people around you are stuck in the loop. And the difference between a real player and an NPC is that the NPC reacts and the player chooses what they want to do. So most of them don't even realize that their character converted into an NPC because they've been programmed by the game to believe they're still playing, but they're stuck on autopilot. Some of the NPCs we need to harvest coins, but most of the distractions are there to get you to take on smaller missions and compare your character's stuff to other gear so that you'll spend coins upgrading your skins and all the other stuff. Once you reach the end of the game, you get access to this character grading system that the game uses, and the game judges you only while you're exiting. Only when you're very close to exiting and leaving the game, you get judged on these 5 things. So here are the 5 secret things that the game is secretly rating you on to determine if you're going to go up on the leaderboard. First thing is decision perspective, and it's love versus fear. This is the ultimate test in the game. Without ever telling you, the developers designed life on Earth to evaluate how often you can make choices rooted in love, empathy, connection, and compassion versus all those that are driven by fear, like self-protection and judgment and isolation. The highest rated characters navigate the game from love a lot more often, even when fear seems like a really easy pass. All right, so secret grading system number 2 is your connection to others. Points are scored for collaboration, deep understanding, forgiveness, the ability to dissolve the illusion of separation. And the strongest players understand that they're not competing, but are in this together. That's the ultimate trick, because when people think of the word game, they think they're in a game. They think that there's a winner and a loser, but that's the ultimate trick, is just getting this in your head and living that in your life. Next is your adaptability. The game is going to throw endless plot twists at you. There's going to be loss and failure, unexpected change. Those people who can learn and grow from adversity score a lot higher. And players who cling too tightly to control and resist change are going to lose points like crazy and not even know it. Next, we have authenticity. There is a hidden bonus for playing your character in alignment with who you truly are, and it's not about playing by society's rules or trying to achieve external success. The developers reward characters who are true to their inner voice, their passions, their purpose, which most people don't figure out until they're about to exit the game completely. And the final secret rating that you're going to get when you're near the exit of the game is contribution. Points are tallied up for how much you give back to the game world, and it could be through helping other characters, sharing knowledge, or leaving behind something that benefits future players. And basically, if you fix things for characters or improve the game map somehow, you get points for that. So remember, Earth is full of distractions and auto-assigned tasks that can keep you running in circles, but the best players zoom out. They set their course and take control of how their story ends. So it's your game, it's your rules. If you learn the game rules well enough, then you can break them. That's how you beat the game. And that's how you get on the leaderboards, by playing it on your terms. And don't forget, you can always reboot your character when things get tough with a psychologist character or one of the NPCs who will accept coins to fix some of your settings. And the cool thing about the game is you're never really stuck in a bad spot in Earth unless you choose to be. Overall, I'll give it 4.5 stars, and it's really fun. I'm still in the game right now as I'm making this video for other characters. If you focus on the points that we talked about to really, truly win the game. Here is one more photo of the other character I connected with and the new character that we brought into the game who's in the tutorial phase right now. Your points also come from whether or not these new characters build points too. So you'll get points based on that as well. If you're also in the main map, let me know, and maybe our characters will meet up with each other. So you made it to the end. Most people don't do that, so I know that you're most likely committed to learning these skills, and I'm willing to bet that you're one of the few people who realize that these skills determine true success, and they always have. If you want to level up your skill level and take it from a casual interest to a serious study, click the link in the description, and I promise what you'll see will blow your mind. So until next time, if you're subscribed, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I really hope you got something impactful from this video, and I hope that your day is the most powerful and meaningful version of it that it can be. Take care.
Cool. All right. So, and there's definitely a lot of points in this video that ring true. He's done an excellent job of, contrasting life really is about. And, yeah. I really like his, trying to remember what he said. What was it? Think, connection, deep understanding, loss and failure, contribution. Yeah. Well done. Any comments, questions, concerns? No? All right. So I think that was our Tuesday show. Then our Wednesday for Heaven's Truth. I think we played this one. Whoops. This is from what does intimacy mean? The Happy Wife School Show 41. Hey, I like that. Why doesn't it? Oh, I like that. I don't know. All right. So here we go.
Everyone, welcome to the Happy Wife School Show. Wonderful to be here with you guys today. I had a wonderful weekend. last weekend when we didn't have the show, I went camping and just had a lovely, lovely time. One of the many blessings of living in Colorado is the incredible outdoors that we have and the ability to go do fun things like camping during the summer. I am going to head over to the chat for a moment to say hello to everyone. And if you can let me know that you can hear me and see me all right and that I am coming through. A big thank you to Phil and Steve and Evo for doing such a wonderful job on Saturdays moderating. It's so fun to see you guys in the community that you guys create and showing up each Saturday. So hi to Memphis Barbecue. If I see in the chat correctly, and if you guys are talking about Olive Branch, Mississippi, if that's where you live in the Memphis area, very familiar, and lived in Olive Branch for a little bit myself before I moved out to Colorado. So that's cool. Hi, C. Kelly. And just loud and clear, Karen. Thank you, Phil. I appreciate it. All right, cool. I'm going to put pop the chat down, put the chat down, and I will take a look at that at the end of the show today. And thank you again, Evo, for sending me questions at the end. So if you have questions based on today's live show or other questions as it relates to the principles and concepts on the Happy Wife School show, be sure to put those in more toward the end and help Evo out by putting question in all caps or making it stand out so he can see that. Before we dive into today's topic, which is what does intimacy mean? And I'm excited to talk about that and the angle that we will take today. But before we go there, I just want to update you guys on Talking Points, the call-in show. I have the first episode with a caller finally edited. It took me a lot longer than I anticipated, and I plan to release that on Monday on X and Rumble. The reason that I am doing Talking Points on X and Rumble and not exclusively to my YouTube channel is I want the freedom to be able to speak without measuring my words in this new format and in this new type of show that I am doing. So that's why I am posting Talking Points exclusively to X and Rumble, but I will put clips on the channel so you can get a preview. So be sure to go over there and follow on either of those platforms if you are part of them. And then also just a reminder that I'm taking these Saturday shows and putting them into podcast format, and you can find that on Spotify, Apple, Google, and then right here on the channel as well, if you prefer listening to these in podcast format. So excited about that. And with all of that being said, let's dive into what does intimacy mean? And the reason that I want to talk about this is that the last live show I did a couple weeks ago, a woman in the chat asked about why as women we don't want intimacy. And I realized I haven't done an episode on intimacy, and more so talking about emotional intimacy in a relationship or a marriage. And where I want to go, we're going to get into 3 ways that women can create intimacy in a marriage. But before we get into 3 ways that women can create intimacy in a marriage, we need to look at what's blocking us from having intimacy. And what blocks us from having intimacy is our walls. So I want to take the beginning of the show today to talk a little bit more about walls. I've talked about our walls through different episodes on the show. And I want to take a little deeper dive into understanding the walls that we have as women. Another area that we are responsible for in a marriage as women, one of our roles and responsibilities is creating intimacy. That if you are married to a good man, the reason that intimacy is lacking is because of us as women. And the reason that intimacy is lacking in a marriage, again, is the walls that we build up as women. Because intimacy in this context is really about allowing another into our hearts and really allowing ourselves to feel and be open-hearted to ourselves and to our husbands. With our walls up as women, we push good men away. And because we live in camp victim, blaming our husbands for the issues and problems in the marriage and the things we feel they need to do and that they need to change for the problems to be solved in the relationship, we never look at what are we doing and how are we showing up that might be causing our husbands to withdraw and pull away and disconnect in the relationship. So we have to be willing to look at what is it in me to go from camp victim to camp take responsibility, to let go of believing that our husband is the source of the problems, and in this case, a lack of intimacy in the relationship, and move into camp take responsibility where we're willing to look at ourselves as the source, because the only person we have any control over to change is ourselves. And it's as women, I've said this before, we have all the power in the world in a relationship with a good man to make it go really well and have a beautiful, intimate relationship, or for it to fail and go really poorly because of how we are showing up in the relationship, that it's up to us. Because a good man is not scared of intimacy. He craves and wants that connection with his wife. It is how we show up with our walls that push a good man away to where he will withdraw and disconnect in the relationship. But as soon as we drop our walls, which we'll talk a little bit about later in the show, as soon as we're willing to drop our walls and be vulnerable, a good man is right there waiting for us. And the intimacy becomes very natural and a very natural expression of having a healthy marriage. Let's talk a little bit about our walls as women and what they are. So for us as women, whereas some women might not be able to admit and know that they emasculate or gaslight their husbands, as women, we know that we have walls. We know how high our walls are. We know how thick our walls are. We know if we have a fortress around our walls or barbed wire wrapped around our walls. We are very aware of them, because for us as women, we have been building our walls, which are a protective mechanism. They're a protective mechanism to keep us from being hurt in life, which is really an illusion, because our walls actually create a lot more hurt in ourselves and a lot more hurt in life, protecting ourselves, because behind those walls, we don't perceive the reality of our relationships for what they are and what's really going on. We live in a total false reality of our marriage and a total false reality just of life and our other relationships, living behind the protection of our walls. But we began building our walls as women from a young age, typically the first time that we got our hearts broken. I can remember the first time I got my heart broken in like fifth grade. And I think I shared that story in a previous episode, so I won't go there. But that's when I know that I started building my walls and taking the hurt that happened in life, and especially in relationships, began stacking those bricks to my walls and using them as a protective mechanism. And that is the purpose of our walls and building them from a young age, and then we go through relationships, we go through life, we encounter more hurt and more heartbreak because that's a part of life. And every time our walls get reinforced, they become thicker. And the purpose is to keep people at an arm's length, to not let anyone into our hearts because of the hurt we might experience. And we believe that somehow we will be taken advantage of. And our walls impact every aspect of our marriage. We, again, will not let our husbands in. And it's really important to know also with our walls up, we can't let ourselves in. We have no connection to ourselves, because I had to realize with my walls up, if I were to let them down and connect with myself, then I'd also have to just feel the hurt within me, that I would have to see me and look at myself and work through issues and challenges with myself. So my walls were also, and I didn't like myself because of how we show up in our lives, trying to be who we think we need to be to other people, the facade we live in, choices we make out of integrity, choices we make living in Camp Victim. We don't feel good about ourselves on the inside. And so I knew if I dropped my walls, I'd have to feel that. I didn't want to connect to me, because if I connected to me, I'd just feel how bad I felt about myself and have to change and face me. So our walls as women are also a way to push ourselves out. And then in that, in a marriage and relationship, we push our husbands out, and it's very, very destructive because there can be no connection. Our walls destroy any possibility of intimacy. Because again, with our walls up, we can't let anyone in. We can't let our husbands in, because we'd actually have to feel a connection. We have to realize as women that our walls in a relationship, while we think that they're protecting us, are destroying it. And that our walls have consequences. When you push your husband away and you don't let him in, you can only do that for so long before he begins to withdraw. He begins to disconnect because he doesn't feel safe within the relationship because of how we make them feel with our walls up. Many women, when I talk about this, will say, well, my husband has his walls up to me. He's the one with walls in the relationship and won't let me in. When we look at it from that perspective, there is no solution. That is the perspective of being a victim, that something is happening to me that I don't have control over. My husband is the one that's disconnected and withdrawn, and that causes me to feel unsafe in the relationship and ignored and pushed away. So he's the problem. That's Camp Victim, and there is no solution there. So if you're a woman listening and you're married to a good man, you have to be the one to look at yourself, which means we have to move from Camp Victim to Camp Take Responsibility, as I said before, to look at what is it about me and how I'm showing up that may be causing my husband to be withdrawn and pull away from me, because that's what I have control to change. I can't change him, but I can change me and look at myself and how I'm the source and how I'm the problem in a constructive way that actually leads to change. Something that I have learned over the years and working with and talking with a lot of women and a lot of good men is I have learned that good men do not go through life building a fortress around their heart and building up walls. This is the difference between us as women and men. As women, we really do spend our whole lives since our first heartbreak building and reinforcing our walls. And every time we get hurt, it goes higher, it gets thicker. My experience in working with good men, and even in my marriage with my husband, is that they do not go through life building walls. They might have a wall circumstantially to an individual as a protection, but it's not an accumulative experience for them that permeates into a good man's life, into all of his relationships. One of the ways that I've experienced that I know that, is that when I get on a call with a woman, and in the context of my work, maybe it's a consultation, maybe it's just a meeting, I can feel a woman's walls. That sometimes a woman will reach out to me for help. We will get on a call. And if her walls are really thick and high, they are an energetic force that sometimes almost knocks me back in my chair. And I know the good men listening can relate to that, because you feel that from your wife, that her walls can be literally an energetic force that pushes you back. They are very palpable. And sometimes a woman's walls are so high, and she might, when I meet with her, might have a smile on her face and try to connect with me, but there can be no connection because of those walls. And sometimes I have to call it out. I'm like, hey, I want to help you and help you see what you want to see and or need to see, but I can't do that if you don't let me in to help you. And we can't continue this conversation with your walls up so high. Can you feel them? And it's very, very palpable. I have never gotten on a call, honest. I have never gotten on a call with a good man and felt his walls up to me. Ever.
This is getting a little longer. Okay, so this is longer than I thought. Oh yeah, way longer. Okay, so we're gonna. The next, I have another one that's really, really good. Watched it last night. The short version of this was labeled as titled, but the long version is this here. We'll get to that. I think what we're gonna do right now is, for a reason that will come obvious, we're going to stop our YouTube feed. Boink.